September 15th, Excite Wrestling will debut its first broadcast on twitch.tv. The main event will be a 5-on-5 matchup in a steel cage. Come watch Excite live and see wrestlers such as Jeff Cobb, Excite champion Sean Carr, Crusade for Change, and more. See us for free on twitch.tv/Excite Wrestling. That's twitch.tv/X Excite Wrestling. Join us for free on Twitch and enjoy some premier upstate New York wrestling.
Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is scheduled for one fall. Dude, I'm not reading the rest of this. You don't even pay me. Just click your button, start the show.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gamefly. For listeners of the Gimmick Table, Gamefly is offering a 1-month free trial. That's going to be one game out. All you got to do is sign up at www.gameflyoffer.com/gimmick, and you can take advantage of this offer. And welcome to another installment of the Gimmick Table. It is our 10th episode. I am Matt, your host, and as always, I am joined by my lovely, lovely co-host. He is the Snoopy to my Charlie Brown. His name is Bats.
How's it going? So does that make Cade Woodstock or Lucy?
We're going to go with Woodstock since he does such a wonderful job on the audio. All right, guys, we want to just say thank you to everybody who's been listening to the show. We had a really strong month last month, and this month, 6 days in, is looking great as well, so thank you for all your support. Well, today on the show, we have a special guest. He's a local guy, and he's going to be wrestling here in Binghamton on September 15th for Excite Wrestling. It's going to be at 8 p.m. at the American Legion Post 80 on 76 Main Street in Binghamton, New York. You can get tickets pre-sale, $15 on their website or $20 at the day of the show. For more information on tickets, all you got to do is go to X, as in the letter, sitewrestling.com, and you get all the information. And the main event will feature a War Game steel cage match when Team Excite, featuring Joe Gacy, Sean Carr, Rob Cook, Axel Lennox, and Greg Excellent, squares off against
The Crusade for Change, featuring TJ Marconi, Stockade, Anthony Gangone, Alex Payne, and Pat Sawyer.
All right, guys, and that brings us to our guest today. And like we said earlier, we're so happy to have somebody from our area, Binghamton, New York, on the show. Really great to get to be able to support somebody from our hometown. So please join us in welcoming to the Gimmick Table. He is the hybrid Sean Carr. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so glad we could finally get to have somebody on the show that is from our hometown. It's awesome that we have such a cool scene of wrestling here. I know a lot of towns, I talk to a lot of people online, and they unfortunately don't have local promotions, so I think we're really fortunate to have something like that in this area.
Yeah, it's definitely cool to have something, to have a good, Binghamton has such a great wrestling history that it's really cool to be a part of a wrestling town.
Yeah, it seems that anything Binghamton does, especially underground music, wrestling, they seem to do it really well and full throttle.
Yeah, I mean, if you actually sat down and listed all the big wrestling names that have been in that little American Legion Post 80, I mean, I think it would shock a lot of people. I mean, for example, when 2CW ran, I mean, we had Kevin Steen versus AJ Styles, which, now Kevin Steen is known as Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles, and then, they had a feud in WWE, and, it's pretty crazy. Those are just two of a huge list of giant wrestling names that have been through our area, through that little American Legion. It's funny, a lot of people don't realize just how many, stars have come through.
Yeah, it's really impressive, and you guys put on a really good performance. Before we go further, I just want to say thank you to Austin for introducing us to you so we could have this opportunity to have you on the show.
Oh, yeah, man, Austin, he's a good kid. I've known Austin, man, forever, it seems. I actually met him I was visiting friends at an Excite show because I didn't wrestle for Excite yet, and it turns out the small world we live in is his aunt actually lives next door to my aunt, and we just never made that connection before wrestling. So, but yeah, no, Austin's definitely, he's good people.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I got to hook up with him. I used to work with him. Now, to get to you, when did you first get introduced to professional wrestling?
I first got introduced to professional wrestling when I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and I was flipping through the channels, and I remember watching. Something caught my eye. It was a ring, and it was Shawn Michaels wrestling the British Bulldog, and I didn't know who either or was at the time, and I just remembered let me give this a shot, and just being captivated by professional wrestling. And I mean, it very soon grew into an obsession and a passion, and wasn't long after that, I was doing it in the backyard, and with my buddies, and we all in my neighborhood, we all became hooked on wrestling. We ordered all the pay-per-views, and we watched all the Raw, Nitro, SmackDown. I mean, if there was wrestling on TV, we were watching it, and that's pretty much how I was introduced to professional wrestling.
So then with that said, kind of take us through the years. You're looking at, about a little over 2 decades of being a wrestling fan. Starting with your childhood, who were some of those guys that you really liked to watch and kind of idolized and influenced you early on?
Oh, man, I mean, first off, I was always, I'm a big Shawn Michaels fan. I mean, he is without a doubt, probably the greatest in-ring performer of all time. Probably would come close to Ric Flair. I mean, him, later on, Rob Van Dam was a very big influence on me. Eddie Guerrero, I was always a really big fan of the cruiserweight style wrestling where like the intercontinental style of guys who, they weren't, huge, you know what I mean, and they wrestled, and that always really inspired me to want to become a professional wrestler. But I mean, I pretty much, I was a big Stone Cold Steve Austin fan, big The Rock fan, I mean, I've been following wrestling since I think 1995, 94, 95. So like, and obviously with all the ways that we can watch wrestling now, I obviously was able to do my homework and watch things that happened before I started watching it. But yeah, I mean, there's so many greats, that were always my favorite. But top 3 were always Shawn Michaels, Eddie Guerrero, and Rob Van Dam.
I mean, I can't argue with that list. And what about now? Like, who are the guys even though that you wrestle, that you kind of like to watch?
I watch a lot of Japan. I watch a lot of New Japan. I watch a lot of Ring of Honor. The thing with wrestling now is there's so many great wrestlers out there, and there's so many people that I'm big fans of. And even though I'm in the business, I'm not afraid to say, no, I'm a fan of that guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a big fan of AJ Styles. I'm very honored and humbled that I was able to share the ring with him. And I think what he's doing right now in WWE, he's just totally amazing. He's probably the best professional wrestler on the planet today. Okada, Kenny Omega, Adam Cole, all those guys that are they're so talented in what they do. And, I always, it's weird because now I'm not really, I'm still a fan, but I'm a student of the game, and I more study than, watch as a fan. But yeah, there's just, like I said before, there's just so many great talent out there that, sometimes it's hard to keep up.
Kind of tell us how you go from just being a fan and transitioning into a professional wrestler.
Oh, man. It was, it's definitely, I don't even know. Like, I've always felt like no matter what, I was always meant to do this, to be in the wrestling business, and it's my love, it's my passion. So like transition-wise, it was more or less just like, you learning the terminology, that us wrestlers have, about the business and everything. But I'm still such a big fan of wrestling. So like the fan never really died in me. It's just now, like whenever I watch wrestling, like it's kind of, I don't want to say predictable, but I don't believe any, I obviously know that everything is what we call work, and very few things are, a shoot, as we call it. So like, you really gotta have to like the acting and the delivery of everything has to be really spot on for me to be like, I don't know if that was real or not. You know what I mean? Right. But yeah, no, it's, the transition was, I think it was the same as anyone who got in the business. At least with me, I still feel like I'm still a fan, if that makes any kind of sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I think that's where you see people that really succeed in any walk of life are the people who don't do it just as a career, but they have a love and a passion for it. And I think with wrestling, probably still being a fan is the best way to still have that love and passion.
Absolutely.
And where did you begin your training?
I first started training in the middle of 2009. I want to say it was like May or June of 2009. Pretty much where I just graduated college and went to Broome Community College. I got my degree, and I wanted to get in the wrestling business. I made a deal with my parents that as long as I got a college degree, something to fall back on, that I would after that, they would have I would have their blessing and be able to pursue professional wrestling. So I didn't really know. I mean, I had an idea how to get in the business, but I didn't really know. So I was just going to a bunch of independent shows, and one of the shows that I went to so happened it was an ECPW show, and I noticed one of the guys who was wrestling that night was a guy who I would always sit, overnight at the arena, to get WWE tickets, and I was like, dude, you're a wrestler? And he was like, yeah, we train up in Cortland. So the following Thursday I went up and I checked him out and I started training that day, and that wrestler, his name was Brendan Fields, but his wrestling name was Robert Spike Norton, and he tragically passed away 2 years ago in a car accident. So miss him deeply, miss him very much, but he was actually the one who pointed me in the direction to start training.
I'm sorry to hear about your friend, man. It sucks when you lose somebody who is close to you like that.
Same with Brandon. He was such a giving human being, and every one of us in the local, he really brought all of us together, and that's what wrestling does. It's a brotherhood, and one of us goes, we all feel it.
I definitely understand it. And where did you go from that after you got introduced to the business? Where did you go from?
Oh man. So I would say about a month or two after I started training is when I had my first quote-unquote match. It wasn't really a match, it was a battle royal. It's kind of like, anyone who's starting, you get your feet wet by doing battle royals, because it's pretty easy. It's kick, punch, get thrown over the top rope. But, I would get booked here and there, and I was still learning, and there was two veterans in our area, one's from Elmira, New York. His name is Rob Cook. His wrestling name is Ivy Green. And there was a local guy from Binghamton. His name was Chuck. His wrestling name was Cage. And Cage, he was everywhere. I mean, he was going to Germany. He had a lot of WWE tryouts. He was constantly on WWE television. On like Velocity or doing job matches and stuff. And so pretty much one day I saw Cage at the gym, and I was like, hey man, I'm really new at this, but I would love to just hop into a car with you and IB, and just kind of go to these shows and try to get noticed, try to get recognized, try to get a match or something. And those two helped me out tremendously, and they ended up getting me booked a lot. And I always tell people, you learn how you learn the basics in a wrestling school, but you really learn to work, and you really learn your trade on the road in front of a crowd. And that was honestly, I feel like that was my best training, because I picked up everything in the ring wise pretty quick. But it wasn't until I was actually thrown out there, with veteran guys, where I really knew, okay, this is why I do something now and not later, or this is why I save this for later. And it really was like an on-the-job learning experience type thing. But for me, that that's how I learned, and that's what got me to where we're at now. So
kind of elaborate for us. Who is the Hybrid?
Oh, the Hybrid. Well, it's funny because I actually hate the name Hybrid. It's one of those things that when I first started wrestling, everyone needed like a gimmick name, or people needed, you needed to have some other name rather than your regular name. And I couldn't really come up with anything. And the local promoter, he didn't want to have my name be anything but what my name is. Because when I first started wrestling, I was wrestling in my hometown of Binghamton. And if we put some silly name that no one people didn't recognize, they wouldn't come. It wouldn't draw tickets. So that's why they kept my real name as Sean Carr. But when I was training, this guy named Horace White, who who first, was my, I guess, quote-unquote trainer. Before I was involved in wrestling, I did a lot of martial arts. I used to do MMA. I got a secondary black belt in Taekwondo. And so I was doing a lot of my stuff because Horace, he wanted to know what I knew. And he was like, man, you're like a hybrid of wrestling. And he was like, that's it. And I'm like, that's what? Because that's your moniker name. You're going to be the hybrid Sean Carr. And at the time, I was so, like, green, and I was so just wanting to wrestle. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And it followed me, and it built a brand around itself. And now as hard as I try to get rid of it, it stuck to me. So that is how I came up, or that is how the name Hybrid came up. But it's as far as like my characters in wrestling, I pretty much have two different characters. Whenever I portray the villain or the heel, I'm completely different than the babyface good guy Sean Carr. The evil Sean Carr is, a loudmouth, and he pretty much does whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and he breaks all the rules and doesn't really care, and he's not afraid to punch you in the mouth. The good guy, though, is like the John Cena, that does no wrong, but, can actually do more than just 5 moves of doom.
So getting to play both sides of the spectrum, what's your preference?
Honestly, I don't really have a preference, because I feel that if I can do both well, then that means I'm a well-rounded wrestler, which means the bookings keep coming, because literally I feel like I offer more because I can do both. I can do both pretty good. But, I wrestle enough places now where it's kind of split in the middle. Like half the places I'm at, I'm a heel, half the places I'm a babyface. So it's not like I'm one all the time and then like the other all the time. So like, if I'm kind of getting sick of being a heel, I can always look at my schedule and be like, well, I'm going to be a babyface the next 3 weeks, so it really isn't that big of a deal. So, but yeah, I mean, if a major company would ever come to me and hire me for one or the other, then maybe I might get sick of it. But for now, I get enough of both where I'm good.
All right. So was there ever a moment in your career when you realized that you had actually gotten over with the fans and, like you said, had become grown into the moniker, the Hybrid, and that brand?
Yes. It would be when I was in 2CW, and Cage and I were actually a tag team. We were known as Team CK, and it was kind of a tag team to just get more years out of Cage, because he was like 15 years in, and he was just trying to hang on for a bit longer. But then it came to a point where I was ready to go off and do my thing, and people like the 2CW crowd. I mean, the people were so passionate about who they liked and who they didn't, and if they didn't like you, they let you know. They were as close to the old ECW style fans as you can get. And I remember like when I first debuted, I was a singles guy. They didn't really know what to take. They didn't really know how to take me. And then they did the tag thing, and they're like, oh, okay, well, no, he's a good dude, we've known him for a while. But it wasn't until I got a huge test when the 2CW office booked me against Eddie Edwards. And that match really propelled me to where I'm at now, because that was the first test. That was okay, we know he's good, but can he hang with one of the best in the world? And Eddie and I it's still today one of my favorite matches of all time, and it's on YouTube. And that match, I feel, really put me, it put me out there as, oh, we have something here. We have to keep giving him, we have to keep booking him in really good matches to see what exactly we have. And after Eddie, I had some crazy matches with Colin Delaney, had some really good matches with JT Dunn, David Starr. It was like as soon as people knew that I could hang with Eddie Edwards, they were like, okay, well, he can hang with, the best there is, so we can keep booking him against top guys. And then after that, it was a snowball effect, and, I was getting over everywhere. And so yeah, that was probably my moment where people were like, wow, okay, we definitely we have something here. So
would you also consider that that's kind of when it clicked that, you know, you are actually getting to live your dream and not only just get to live it, but be successful at doing it?
yeah, you know, I mean, it was definitely like, you know, I didn't really know how it would go over and how, you know, because Eddie was there for years, and I mean, he was Ring of Honor World Champion, and I think the time that him and I wrestled, he was a TNA Tag Champion. He didn't get to the heavyweight title yet. You know, so like, you know, when him and I, when we did our thing, and then I'd never forget the handshake at the end and having the people chant, "That was awesome." That's where I was like, oh wow, like this is pretty cool. Like, and it's a moment I'll never forget.
And you've had a lot of success, and if you really look through your, you know, resume of opponents, it's a list of who's who in the wrestling world. How do you handle all that success that you've seen?
You know, I mean, like, I just kind of look at it as, you know, when I started wrestling, you know, I still feel this way. I just wanted to be respected, you know, like that was it. Like, if I ever made it somewhere cool, if I ever, you know, got, you know, to WWE, that's awesome. But at the end of the day, I always wanted to be at least remembered as one of those guys who, when you look back, no one can really ever say a bad thing about me. And that I always came with my working boots on. And at the end of the day, as long as I had the respect of the fans and my peers in the wrestling business, you know, then I'm good. And, you know, and I've been blessed, man. I mean, I've had so many cool opportunities to do so many cool things and wrestle so many, you know, just top wrestlers and huge stars that, you know, a lot of people don't get the chances and the opportunities that I have, and I'm just thankful for it, you know, because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I'm being able to live my dream every day and be able to, you know, be considered to be one of the top guys, you know, at least in the Northeast, and that means a lot.
It definitely shows, and I think it's very important, you know, being that humble, and I think that, you know, if you stay humble, that's going to lead to success down the road, no matter in what you do.
Absolutely.
So earlier this year, you did get a chance to compete for Ring of Honor in the Top Prospects Tournament. Kind of tell us what that experience was like.
Oh man, that was awesome. I mean, earlier last year is when it was actually around this time. It was around September, late August, early September of last year is when I first was able to get a tryout with Ring of Honor. It actually started before that, of April of last year, where I did one of their tryout camps at their school in Bristol, Pennsylvania, and pretty much like they knew who I was, you know, because I had a lot of high profile matches, you know, with the Young Bucks and, you know, with AJ Styles and Eddie Edwards, so many, Matt Hardy, you know, I mean, it was crazy. So they knew who I was going in, so they really were like, okay, we're gonna test and see what, you know, really test and see what we got. And on the last day of the tryout camp, we did matches, and they had me wrestle one of their students who literally, he'd never had a match in front of a live crowd before, and this was his very first actually match having. And there was a spot in the match where it was going to be his comeback, and I slammed him down. I was going to go for a moonsault, and he was going to roll out of the way. Me not really thinking, and I probably should have explained it more to him, instead of rolling in, he rolled out. So when I came down, my knee hit him. And he was a pretty bulky guy. So my knee came down, and it kind of hyperextended, and I actually ended up almost tearing my LCL on the side of my knee. And so I'm laying there, and I was like, you know, I got to finish this match. You know, I have to show them that, you know, even hurt, I can keep it composed and together and still be able to finish the match. And we ended up finishing the match, and Christopher Daniels stood up because he was one of the trainers, and he pointed and he said, "Everyone watching, that right there is a pro wrestler." And that meant so much to me. So then fast forward a few months later, I got a call by Kevin Kelly that Ring of Honor would be going to Buffalo, New York, and they really wanted me to go there and maybe, you know, I get a dark match and see what we can do. And so we did the dark match. It went really well. They pulled me aside and they said, "You were the star in that match." And they put me in the Honor Rumble, which is like Ring of Honor's version of the Royal Rumble later in the night. Did that. It was really fun, really cool. And then it got around Christmas time, and then that's when I got the other email that said, "Hey, we'd like for you to compete, you know, in the Top Prospect Tournament." And that was just the coolest thing in the world. I mean, to be able to be given, you know, like 8 minutes on their television, you know, to showcase what you can do. It was so much fun. And yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to happen coming up. I mean, I really haven't talked to them much since then. I know they've been going through a lot with guys leaving and guys coming and going, but definitely it was definitely one hell of an experience, and it got me a lot of exposure, and it really, you know, it helped bookings, and you know, it was just something so totally, it was a dream come true, because I've been a fan of Ring of Honor for the longest time. So to be able to say that I've got to wrestle for them on multiple occasions is something I'm pretty proud of.
And you said you got that email right around Christmas?
Yeah, it was actually after Christmas. I think it was right after the New Year. It was actually a few days after my birthday, so
that's a good birthday present.
It's probably, no, it really was. Yeah, it was like around like very beginning of January. It was like January 3rd or 4th is when we all got the notification that they wanted us to be a part of the prospect tournament.
And what do you believe has helped you achieve so much success so far in your career?
You know, honestly, I think that if it's, I was always raised with, you know, the classic kindergarten phrase, you do to others what you expect to be done to you. So I always try to treat everyone with respect. You know, I hate guys who have big egos and big, like, just cocky for no reason. You know what I mean? Like, that's not me. Like, I just think that's just kind of childish and, like, insecure. So, like, I like to think that, you know, hard work, you know, always wanting to have the best match of the night and just having a good attitude and a good head on your shoulders is what really, you know, it's what leads you to success. And, you know, just I've seen so many guys treat dudes just so terrible in this business, and I always told myself I never wanted to be that guy. So I think all of that has something to do with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's the one thing that we've really gotten to experience kind of from outsiders looking in with all our guests, is that we get to talk to a lot of people that have that same mentality where they're really humble, and just the experiences they have both, you know, with their peers and getting to learn, as well as, you know, creating those moments with the fans is really more important to them than, you know, their own egos and how far they can get just by themselves.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that 100%.
How do you keep your ring work innovative? How do you keep constantly growing, you know, your move set as well as promo work and things of that nature?
You know, honestly, like, it's weird. Like, I really tried not to think about wrestling, like, moveset wise that much during the week. It's always like the day of a show is when the ideas really start flowing to me. You know what I mean? And like, I just always try to think outside the box, and like, I know what my limitations are, and I always try to calculate every risk I take. And you know, it also never, you know, it also helps when you have someone else that you're working with who has just as much experience and talent as you. And you got two good minds, you know, coming together. I mean, that, you know, it helps so much, you know, when you have two experienced minds to help design a pro wrestling match. And, you know, I'm never too good at taking a suggestion or, you know, hey, how about you try it like this? Oh, okay, let's try it, you know, because it's, you know, it's kind of like, you know, when you go out shop for a pair of pants, not every pair of pants that you try on is going to fit, you know what I mean? But like some, you know, that's why you got to shop around, and you got to take criticism. You got to take, you know, an idea like, oh, you know, let's try that out, see what happens. You know, you can't be afraid to take a chance and take a risk. I mean, you might fail, or, you know, it could turn into something that gets really over, you know? So that's pretty much the mindset I go to when it comes to trying to be innovative in the ring.
And what about with your promo work and things like that? Keep getting the fans involved and such.
You know, I always try to think that like promos are kind of like MC rap battles in a way, you know. So like I'm a big, like, I like to come back with a lot of stuff. So like I always preferred if somebody to, you know, cut a promo on me first. So then I have like ideas and stuff that I can go back and try to, you know, not outdo them, but try to, you know, just at least make it a competitiveness, because I feel like if fans see that you're competing with each other in a promo, then they really care what they're doing, and they're putting a lot of passion into it. So that means the match is going to be pretty good. So I always try to go to that look, you know. A lot of people see it differently, but that's just how I go at it as, and it's worked for me so far. So.
And kind of just throughout your whole career, some of the people that you shared the locker room with, who have been some of the most influential people to you?
Oh, man. I got to share a locker room with Rob Van Dam, and that was, you know, it meant a lot to me because I was able to pull him aside and be like, you know, I don't mean to bother you, but, you know, you're the reason why I'm doing this. You know, you're one of my biggest influences, and to have him be so cool to me and, you know, so appreciative and say, we got to take a picture, and, you know, we took a picture together. That was really cool. But the other would definitely be Cody Rhodes. Cody is a gem. Cody is such an amazing human being. And he's so generous, and he's just so kind. And I always that influences me and makes me want to be more of a better person, because I mean, here's a guy who can literally just be like a big jerk if he wanted to, you know, but he's not, you know, and he's such a helpful, caring human being. And, you know, I'll never forget when we had him in an Excite Wrestling and the ring broke. We were supposed to go on last. They Jimmy rigged the ring and fixed it as best as they could. And I'll never forget at the end of the night, Cody donated all the money that he made in pictures and autographs to the company to get a new ring and to get the ring fixed.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
He did not have to do that, you know? I mean, he literally was like, he told us the story. He goes, he remembered being on the ring crew when his dad ran Independence in North Carolina. And he goes, I remember when the ring would break and how much it would suck. And I remember, you know, trying to fix it and trying to make it, you know, to the next town and this and that. And just having to say, you know, I'm in a position where I can help. And he was like, and I want to. And that to me is just the coolest thing in the world, you know? I mean, the guy literally handed, you know, like a couple $1,000s over like it was nothing. That's a man, you know what I mean? So, like, at the end of the day, if, like, you know, if that influences me to just be a better human being in and out of the ring, so that was definitely really cool.
Yeah, man, that's a wonderful experience, and especially getting to work with, you know, some of the biggest guys out there. Rod Van Dam, one of my favorites growing up as a kid myself as well. And Cody Rhodes, I appreciate so much what he's doing now outside of the WWE. It's just something, I've said it 1,000 times, something so refreshing to see. And the fact that, you know, you get to see him around here is even cooler.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So out of all the matches that you've had, what are some of the most memorable? I mean, if you got a top 5 or something that you'd like to go through?
Oh, man. I would probably have to say, obviously, Eddie, the match I had with Eddie Edwards, that's up there. My match, and these are no particular order. These are just top 5 off the top of my head. The one with Eddie, my match with John Morrison, that one was really big. The 2CW ladder match with Captain Nick Ando, that one was really just, I mean, you know, people are calling it the greatest, you know, ladder match in New York wrestling history, which is really cool. Very hard-hitting match. Blood, and, I mean, it was crazy. The triple threat match I had with it was me versus AR Fox versus Cody Rhodes. That to me, which is unbelievable. The crowd was crazy. And then I'm gonna probably have put up the night I won the 2CW heavyweight title, because it was my very first heavyweight title and win. And you know, my family came in the ring. You know, my future wife, my daughter, my dad, my mom, you know, Rob Cook, who, you know, helped me out so much in the business. And, you know, just to live that moment and just take a knee and hear the whole crowd chanting, "You deserve it," was just, I mean, that was probably my most favorite moment in the wrestling business so far.
And if you had one guy that you could wrestle in the world right now, who would it be?
Ooh, well, I've never wrestled Rob Van Dam. I'd love to check mark that one off the bucket list. But actually, believe it or not, past that, man, there's so many. I mean, there really is. I mean, Adam Cole, I almost wrestled Adam Cole, but unfortunately it didn't happen because he was under contract with Ring of Honor. Man, I'm a big Jushin Thunder Liger fan. I love to wrestle him. There's so many. It's hard to narrow it down to just a few, you know what I mean? Yeah, pretty much, you know, anyone in Ring of Honor, you know, anyone in New Japan, I love to wrestle, but, Kenny Omega, he's definitely one that, you know, because he's just so good. He's so talented. It's crazy. So guys like that.
Now, one thing I want to talk about, because I talk about this a lot with my co-host, who hasn't actually said anything all episode. He's being kind of quiet. I find that indie wrestling, especially like you mentioned this earlier with social media nowadays and all the different platforms there are for people to watch wrestling. Indie wrestling seems to be on the upswing. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Why do you think that is? If we, obviously the WWE has kind of, ruled the roost for a very, very long time, but kind of losing ground with a lot of fans, I feel. And why do you think that is in comparison to indie wrestling?
Honestly, I think it's because, with today's day and age, with social media, with, there's so many ways to watch wrestling. And honestly, like, there's so many guys, wrestlers out there who don't need WWE. I mean, let's just take an example of the Young Bucks. The Young Bucks are a draw, and they've never been on WWE television. I mean, outside of like a job match here or there from back in like 2007. But there's so many talented guys out there. There's so many talented wrestling promotions. There's so many promotions out there that you can watch for cheap. For like $8-9 or whatever. And the wrestling you're seeing is quality stuff. It's not like it's like an old fire hall and a broken down ring and two fat guys fake punching each other. I mean, there's some really good stuff out there, and there's so many different forms of professional wrestling, and there's so many different companies, and it's definitely, it's on the up and up, because literally, there are guys out there that don't need WWE, and there's so many just amazing wrestlers nowadays where people don't really need to watch just WWE, whereas before, where the independent wrestling was more of like an underground thing that only a handful of people would know about. Now, it's just so much out there that it's hard not to follow it. So it's definitely a great time to be in the business, in my opinion.
Okay, I finally have something to say.
As
like a super casual wrestling fan, the one thing that I can say about the WWE and like New Japan, Ring of Honor, is WWE, their wrestling is storyline driven, and the Ring of Honor is wrestling driven. Like WWE, you're watching the wrestling match to see the culmination of the storyline, whereas the Ring of Honor, you're watching a really good match that's accentuated by some cool and maybe funny storytelling on the side.
Absolutely. Do you know why that is?
I don't.
I'm going to tell you what William Regal told me when I had a WWE tryout 3 years ago. He said, he goes, I want all, he gathered all of us having a tryout around. He goes, I want you all to realize something. This is an entertainment company, not a wrestling company. Because if you want to be in a wrestling company, there's Dragon Gate, there's New Japan, there's Ring of Honor, those are wrestling companies. And he goes, this is an entertainment company. And they make you right off that, it's the first thing they told you. This is not a wrestling company. This is an entertainment company. So they know that, and they, obviously they refer to themselves as sports entertainment, and their wrestlers as sports entertainers. You very rarely ever hear the word wrestling on WWE programming, because they don't feel they are wrestling. They feel that wrestling is that southern stuff that, GM Crockett used to promote. We're entertainment. So as weird as that is, that's the mentality that Vince McMahon and the WWE have. So you are exactly right. The wrestling on WWE is just, for the storyline, whereas Ring of Honor is a back and forth fight of a match. So little insight to wrestling.
No, that makes perfect sense. And they obviously even know that the wrestling aspect is getting to be more popular than the entertainment aspect, and that's probably why they have NXT right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then, it's a funny thing too, because not to really give away a lot of wrestling secrets, but everyone's always like, yeah, NXT is just so amazing. Well, it should be. Here's something that a lot of people don't understand. In NXT, all those and trust me, I love to be there. All those guys, literally, and girls have a few weeks to choreograph these matches, these amazing matches out. Whereas when you're on the main roster, you literally are planning it out the day of. So yeah, NXT and all those, that should be amazing. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they have enough time to prepare and to come up with the best possible matches that they can in the time that with agents and everything. Whereas with you're on the main roster, you literally you show up and that's when you figure out what you're doing. So to give you guys a little insight on wrestling.
But I was going to say at the same time, if you see, with the WWE, they're snatching up a lot of the guys on the indie scene from Ring of Honor, New Japan, and it's just a testament to what you guys are doing out there.
If you look at their last 10 signees, all Ring of Honor. I mean, off the top of my head, they just announced Donovan Dijak, Leo Rush, Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish. Let's see, Samoa Joe's in Ring of Honor. You know what I mean? So I mean, there's just Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn. It's just WWE is selling what's going on. And they know what they realize that the bodybuilder look and the bodybuilders that they think they could just train, that idea wasn't going, and they had to go and they had to recruit the actual pro wrestlers, and look at their product now.
Oh, I would say within the last year, it's improved tenfold to where it was, and it's
Absolutely.
it's because of those guys. It's because of the Kevin Owens and the AJ Styles, and obviously, Shinsuke Nakamura giving you more wrestling than we've been used to for a long time.
Exactly. And it's guys who are passionate about what they do, too. They're not just in it to get a paycheck. They actually want to have cement their own legacy and to be something special. They're not just some jacked up guy who thinks, I'm going to make it quick, be a millionaire quick. You know what I mean?
Right? Is it really more like shocking of a concept to understand that people who are passionate about what they're doing make for even more entertaining than an actual entertaining, air quotes, type thing?
Dude, let me tell you something. Wrestling is one of the wackiest businesses that, is probably exists today. So,
Now, what advice would you have for anybody who wants to become a professional wrestler?
the advice I would have is make sure that you go to a reputable school. Do your research. There's a lot of amazing schools out there. Danny Cage and the Monster Factory is probably at the top of the list. I've been to this facility. It is top notch. Those guys, Danny and Luis Martinez and all those guys down there, they know what they're doing. And they have been pumping out star after star after star after star. So, I mean, if you want to get in the wrestling business, do your research, get in shape, go to a reputable school, and have a good mind and a good, a good head on your shoulders. Because I have seen so many guys in the 8.5, 9 years I've done this. I've seen so many guys come and I've seen so many guys go because of egos. And, think that they were all that in a bag of chips, and it turned out that they were expendable, And, get ready to love pro wrestling, even if pro wrestling doesn't love you, because there's, a lot of guys get a lot of opportunity and a lot of guys don't. You got to be happy for other people, and you got to just stay on your own path. So hopefully whoever's listening to this who wants to get in the business, hopefully you take that advice.
Well, sounds like solid advice. And kind of elaborating on that, obviously, we spoke earlier, you've had a lot of success, but I mean, with anything in life, for success, there has to be some failure along the way. Kind of elaborate for us how you've kind of dealt with those over the years and how you've grown from them.
Yeah, there was a time where I was in the tag team and I didn't want to be in the tag team, but I still had a job I had to do, and I still had bookings and commitments that I had to do, and at the time I wasn't where I felt like I should be in the business. And it's just one of those things where you really got to just stay passionate, and you really just gotta you just have to find a way to get to where you want to be, because no one's going to do it for you, and that's with life, that's not even just with wrestling. I mean, if you're not happy with someplace that you're at, then you got to take yourself and you got to put yourself in the spot that you want to be in, because no one else is going to do it for you. Wrestling, there's times where, you're going to love it. There's times where you're going to hate it. There's times where you're like, man, why the hell am I throwing my body on the ground, for, a hot dog and a handshake, you know what I mean? But you just always got to remain passionate, and you got to keep grinding it out. You got to work hard, This is a cutthroat, grueling business, and a lot of people make it, or very few people make it, and a lot of people don't, and you got to be, you just got to keep, you always have to have fun. If you're not having fun and it's becoming a job, then you need to stop. So, like I said, I've seen a lot of people come, I see a lot of people go, so it's wrestling. Macho Man said it perfectly. Pro wrestling is like a treadmill. You get on, you have a good run, but eventually you're gonna get off, and someone else is gonna get on and have a good run. It's life.
It kind of seems like you almost have to understand, sharing the spotlight is what's going to be best for everybody involved.
And I mean, the thing is, there's so many places to go now. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, everywhere you look, there's a wrestling company that, people have been making a good living out of wrestling. I mean, for me, wrestling is a second job. I mean, it's literally a source of income from my family at the level I'm at. I'm never satisfied. I'm always trying to, advance more and more. But, as of right now, I mean, it literally helps pay the bills. So.
All right, now this Friday, September 15th, you're going to be in a War Games steel cage match. Tell us how that came to be.
Oh, man, that... War Games steel cage. Well, there's a group in Excite, and they're called the Crusade for Change. And they've been running around for the better part of probably a year and a half, 2 years, just doing whatever they want. So they've constantly interfered in matches. I don't have my heavyweight title belt. Actually, they stole it the last show. So pretty much a challenge is made with stipulations where it's going to be 5 of them versus Excite's top 5 guys, and War Games rules, and if Excite wins, the Crusade must vanish, and they can no longer be known as the Crusade for Change, and they can no longer associate with each other. The Crusade for Change is no more. However, if they win, then Excite Wrestling is no more, and Excite Wrestling will close its doors. So it's a pretty big match, pretty big stipulation involved, and Team Excite, man. Me, Joe Gacy, Rob Cook, Excellentix, and Greg Excellent will be taking on a whole mess of ugly dudes with the Crusade for Change.
See, now, Bats, you should have just said. See, we've done a plug on the last 2 episodes, and some of the names we've stumbled on, and we obviously didn't want to say them wrong because we don't want to get. So we should have just said that for them instead of trying to sit here and take 15 takes on the intro.
I said their names.
There you go.
And outside of this, on the 15th, this will be airing on the 11th. Anywhere else we can see you performing?
Yeah, man. I mean, I got a lot of cool things coming up September. This weekend, which would be September 9th, but it's going to be airing later. I'm going to actually be in Quebec City, Canada, for North Shore Pro Wrestling. Pretty excited about that. It's actually my debut in Canada, and it's a hike. It's definitely a distance away. But not only that, I will at the very end of the month, I'll be wrestling for C4 in Ottawa, which I'm really excited for because I've been wanting to debut for them for a while. But yeah, I'm ECWA New Jersey this month. On Point Wrestling, which is a deathmatch, hardcore, but still has wrestling on it, company that's in New Jersey. And pretty soon, hopefully, going to make it my debut in ESW, Empire State Wrestling, out there in Buffalo. So I got a lot of stuff coming up I'm pretty excited about.
Good for you, man. And how can people get a hold of you on social media?
Oh, man, I'm all over social media. If you guys have the Twitter machine, you could follow me at Hybrid Sean Carr. I have a Facebook page. Just type in my name, Sean Carr. I cannot accept any friends because I'm kind of maxed out on that. But I have a like page, and if you go ahead and like it, that'd be super cool. I also, for all your merchandise needs, I have a Pro Wrestling Tees store. Just go to prowrestlingtees.com/Sean Carr, and I got some pretty cool T-shirt designs up there. And yeah, I'm always on the run. I'm always on the go. So, chances are if you're in the Northeast and you go to a pro wrestling show, there's a good chance I'll be on it.
Yeah, and definitely keep us in the loop. Anything you put out there, we'll make sure we retweet it and get it out to everybody who's listening to the show. We're always, as we always say, any promotions, any wrestlers who want a free plug on the show, we're not going to charge. So
that's awesome. Thank you, guys.
All right, so guys, we're going to unhinge the gimmick table, and what we're going to do today is we're going to give a superhero, and you are going to tell us what wrestler would play that superhero. So, Bats, why don't you get us started off since you are quiet today?
All right, well, just because you mentioned it about Netflix, Daredevil.
I'm gonna say Edge.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know why, just Edge. Edge with his haircut.
Or, well, just with a mask on. Oh, no, well, his hair would show through the mask. Maybe.
I'm going to say Randy Orton because he's so good he could do it all with his eyes closed.
I quit.
I knew you would be pissed.
What about Wolverine? Who would make a good Wolverine?
I'm gonna say the American Badass Undertaker.
I can see
All
it.
right. I mean, if you want to go like a bigger dude for Wolverine, I could see Braun Strowman being like a pretty badass Wolverine.
I see him as Juggernaut.
Yeah, I mean, because he's bigger, but
I always wish they had made the Wolverine movie with Danzig. That would have been sweet.
instead of Hugh Jackman.
That'd been awesome.
Well, I think he tried out for it, or they were going to make a movie with him. I don't remember. It was some internet rumor from... It's the internet. Let's see. Deadpool. That's somebody with a mouth.
Oh yeah, that's definitely somebody with a mouth.
It's got to be CM Punk just because of the fourth wall.
Yeah, I was gonna say CM Punk. Yeah.
We were talking about Dolph last episode would be a good Deadpool
Yeah.
because he's kind of
just-
witty with his mouth there.
And he's a stand-up comedian.
Plug that again, guys. Dolph Ziggler does stand up.
He doesn't even pay us for these plugs. Let's see. One more. I got my superhero days. I just watched The Defenders. It wasn't bad either. Let's do Luke Cage. There we go.
Luke Cage. Now, do they have to be black?
No, I mean, I'm thinking more like who encompasses him as a person, not so much, yeah.
I gotcha.
So it could be Sheamus. We can go on the whole opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, Sheamus. Yeah, that's a good one. I'll have to go with that.
We should do probably a super villain.
Shredder.
Shredder. Man, I don't even know.
I mean, he's kind of small for a Shredder, but Finn Balor would be a good Shredder. He's not
You know,
really...
I could honestly see Finn Balor doing, like, if he was still in the Indies, like, doing, like, a Shredder. Like, remember before he was signed, he was doing, like, all those superhero entrances, and, like, he was a different character everywhere he went.
He could do a 4-on-1 against the Turtles.
Yeah.
I guess that wraps it up for the Unhinged. Once again, we appreciate you coming on tonight, and we definitely look forward to getting to see you live on the 15th, and hopefully you can keep the doors of Excite Wrestling open.
I hope. Well, thank you guys very much for having me. This is probably one of my favorite interviews I've ever done, so thank you guys.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate you saying that. That means a lot to us.
Yeah, man, it was great having you.
Definitely.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up today for us here at the Gimmick Table. We appreciate you guys listening once again, and a big thank you to Sean Carr for joining us today on the show, taking time out of his busy life so we could have such an awesome interview. Make sure you guys get out there, follow him on Twitter, Facebook, check out the matches he has on YouTube. You will not be disappointed. Guys, if you like the show, you want to follow us, appreciate any feedback you want to give us. We are on Twitter. You can find us there at @gimmick_table. Also on Facebook and YouTube, Gimmick Table Podcast. All you got to do is search that. It's simple. We're also on iTunes and Stitcher. We love those iTunes reviews. And we cannot forget our friends, all those wonderful people out there on social media that support us and who also happen to make some wonderful wrestling podcasts themselves. Let's kick it with some information on our friends in the podcasting world order. Starting off with our boys from the 8 Mile. We have the Wrestling Nerds Alliance, and they can be found on Twitter at WNA Podcast. They're also on Facebook at Wrestling Nerd Alliance, and you can download their show on iTunes, Stitcher, or Podbean. Who's up next, Bats?
Next up, we have Wretched Wrestling. You can find them on Twitter at Wretched Wrestle, on Facebook at Wretched Wrestling, and they're on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and Periscope.
Now, before you go any further, make sure that anybody who listens to them, you start hounding them on all social media for an episode to be done with Alex Jones.
Yes, you you want to see an episode with Alex Jones.
You need to see an episode with Alex Jones. Continue, Bats. I apologize for interrupting your plugs.
No, that brings us to S Marks the Spot, and they're on Twitter at SMarkSpot, Facebook at SMarkSpot, and you can find them on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Podbean.
And last but not least, we have Raw is More. They can be found on Twitter at Raw is More or Facebook at Raw is More. And you can listen to their show downloaded at iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Podiant. Those are our friends. Listen to them. They are wonderful people. And that's it for us. Another episode of the Gimmick Table is in the books. We're going to wrap up the table and put it away till next week. Boys and girls, have a good day.
See ya.